Well, thanks for talking to me today. I appreciate it. So what I want to know is obviously when you started this, you posted on social media about the house you built and it kind of blew up. But how did it go from that to the TV show? Can you just sort of talk a bit about that process?
Absolutely. So the night that the post went viral, I didn't know that it had gone viral because I put the photo up and then I turned my phone off. And I probably had my phone off about 10 hours. I drove back to New York City. And when I turned my phone on, my mom said, "Did you see what happened?" And it's probably like 10 o'clock at night by this time. And I then realized, oh my gosh, this thing went viral. That was not my intention at all. And that night, my best friend, Rachel Rogers, called me and she said, "What is something that you've always wanted to do?" And I had totally forgot that when I was on Broadway, I had a web series called Broadway Quick Change, where I would transform Broadway star dressing rooms. And she said, "You have to make this into a TV show." And so that night, she and I stayed up all night making a pitch for a TV show around what could home renovation, reclamation, and family history look like. And then the next day is when we made a website that night at like midnight. And then the next morning, we heard from Scott's Brothers Entertainment. And then a few weeks after, we met with the Oprah Winfrey Network and HGTV. And then from there, here we are.
Because that was a really quick turnaround, it sounds like. So that's gotta make it easier at least. You weren't pitching it forever. So when you first bought the house, though, just kind of aesthetically, what was it about it that made you think it was perfect?
It was less about the aesthetics and more about the spiritual feeling that I felt when I stood on the ground. Obviously, when I saw the home on Zillow, I took a screenshot of it and I texted my best friend and I said, "I am going to buy this house." It just something just rose up inside of me. And when I drove up to see the house and I went in for the first time, I just was in love. And it was like that love at first sight feeling when you're like, I know that this home is for me. Like I know this thing is for me. I mean, obviously there is the beautiful columns and the staircase and the gorgeous windows, but really it was this deep sense of belonging that I felt when I got there.
That makes sense. Did you, though, as you were walking through, have like kind of an idea in your head what you wanted it to look like, or did you really not know? Because obviously, you have a designer and everything. I'm just curious, did you have a picture in your mind? And if you did, was it way different than what it ended up, I guess?
I love that question, Jamie. I had no clue. I just Again, it was just all about a feeling. The
Oh, yeah.
only thing that I could absolutely see was when we went upstairs to the second floor, there's this very long room. And I immediately saw a dance studio. And actually, the architect who walked through the house with me the first time that I ever saw it, I had tears just streaming down, and they were collecting in my mask because we were still wearing masks because it was
Oh,
June
okay, yeah.
2020. And he said he knew that that was the moment that, regardless of how much work the home needed, that I was going to figure it out. And I could see the dance studio within that moment. I was like, this is going to be spectacular.
Now, obviously, you said you've done their dressing rooms and stuff, but that's way different than this. Did you have any idea, I guess, what you were getting into when you decided to go on this venture?
I am so glad I had zero clue what I was doing before I went on this adventure because I definitely do believe I still would have said yes because of how beautiful and how special of a process it was. But I had no clue the amount of time. Like, I thought we would be done within 9 months. It took us 4 years. I thought we would be under $1 million. It took us $2 million. Like everything doubled, tripled, and quadrupled. So no, I had zero clue.
But you said you would have still done it. Is this something, though, that you'd like to do again? Well, I don't know, you necessarily need another house, but is it something that you enjoyed doing enough you would want to do something like this, I guess, in the future again?
I would love to do it again for other people because there is nothing more special than being able to find your family history and being able to come home. And so to be able to take the lessons that I learned and share that with other people in another way, that feels like the best next step.
What's the biggest lesson you learned then?
What's meant for you will never pass you. And that sooner or later, it will turn in your favor. You just have to remain patient.
Was there any point though when this was happening, especially when things kept going wrong after one thing after another, that you kind of were like, why did I do this? Did you ever reach that point really, or did you just keep positive?
I never reached a point of why did I do this, but I did reach a point of why me? Why is this so hard for me? Because I knew my intentions were pure going into this, and I just didn't understand why doing something so beautiful for my family and for the culture had to be so hard.
How obviously there's a lot about the history of the house and everything that's very important to you, but how important was it being able to, share this experience with everybody on television?
It was really the only reason to do the project was to share it because when we know our history, especially those of us that came to this country as enslaved people, to be able to find your name, to be able to find where your ancestors come from, it gives you a different sense of liberation. Juneteenth hits very differently for me now than it did in 2020, simply because I now know where my people come from. And that gives you a different confidence in how you enter spaces and a different confidence in how you truly say yes to life.
What was obviously you did research on the house and on your own history, but what was something I guess that surprised you the most during this project that you found out about either the house or about yourself?
I think what was most surprising was the connection of W.E.B. Du Bois to my home, because that is his birthplace, Great Barrington, Massachusetts. But being able to find out that the co-founder of the NAACP, which is a huge reason so many of African Americans that we have the freedoms that we do are because of this man's architecture, right? And to know and find out that his mother worked for the family, the Russell family, which was the family that owned my home. And to know that he had a connection and he played on the land of my house. He talks about playing as a kid on on this little stream. It's the stream on my property. And so to be able to feel that history, it it surprised me to then be able to say, oh, this is why when I came to the home the first time I felt this deep sense of belonging, because here is this other incredible Black man who forged a path for us, And so I felt that, and it was beautiful and surprising to be able to actually pull together the historical significance of it.
What's the one thing that I guess, because you're talking about historical significance, obviously there were some things that you thought were original that weren't, other things that were, but maybe you lost along the way. What's kind of the one, I guess, biggest regret that you couldn't have saved or had original or whatever that you was different than what you expected in the end?
Oh, Jamie, you're killing me with this one because it still haunts me in my sleep. There was, and you can see it in episode 1, but I believe it is in episode 3 when we actually talk about it. There was off of the living room going into the study, there was one of the only
Oh,
surviving
the
original
arch.
art.
Yeah.
And we did not do enough to save that arch. And I still am sad about losing that arch because I wasn't consulted about it being taken out of the home. And I just came in one day to the construction site, and that beautiful
Mhm.
200-year-old arch was gone. I do think the design choice that we now have, what we were able to come up with the, you'll see there's like beautiful double sliding doors and these gorgeous custom tertiary lamps on the wall, but that still is devastating. It just was told to me that it was not salvageable, and that was heartbreaking.
Do you think that you had a harder time not, I mean, being in New York, a lot of it, and not being, at the project? Did that make it a lot more difficult?
Absolutely. If I could go back, I would have spent much more time on site.
What do you have a favorite part of it, that just overall favorite room, favorite part? Or can you not
Oh,
choose?
one of my favorite rooms in the home is my study. And the study is dedicated to my dad, and each room in the house is dedicated to a different family member. And there's just something magical about that space. It's filled with Black history books and gorgeous cookbooks and books about Broadway, but I just feel my dad's energy in that space. I feel my grandfather's energy in that space, who was a entrepreneur as well. And it's wrapped in this gorgeous green and gold swan custom wallpaper that's just stunning. And how the light hits, it's just, I mean, every room is my favorite, but that room really, it touches me in a different way.
Okay. I don't know why I thought you were going to say the dance studio, but that works too. I just was curious. So obviously you see sketches. You don't see, well, I mean, you might have seen 3D renderings. I don't know, but you see, before it gets done. What was the room, I guess, that surprised you the most between seeing it beforehand and seeing it in reality, that kind of gave you the most surprise? Or was it pretty much how you expected from what you saw with the sketches and things?
Well, because of the speed of how fast we moved with parts of the design and construction process, I didn't really see a lot of sketches moving in, right? So, but the one that definitely surprised me the most was the dining room, because the dining room is, I believe, 30 feet, a 30-foot length. So it's a pretty large dining room, sorry, a pretty large kitchen, the kitchen. And I knew that there were going to be these gorgeous white cabinets and this beautiful fine and dandy wallpaper. But when I finally saw it all installed, that was the room that nearly tipped me over with joy. I was like, this is the most stunning thing I've ever seen. It's a gorgeous mixture of marble and stone. It's stunning.
You obviously had to have a lot of trust then in the designers and the construction people. Was that hard along the way to kind of let that go? Because I know some people, when they're, redoing their houses, have more control. Some people have less control. Some people don't want to know what's going on. But was that something that was hard for you to let go of that?
What was beautiful about the process is I actually had, I'd say, 100% control over the design process. So there was nothing that got out of my control. So my designer and both the architect and the contractor, we stayed always in communication around choices that were being made. So, and what was really wonderful, Jamie, is it was able to then be a very collaborative
Mhm.
process. The only room that I didn't know what it was going to look like moving into the reveals was the primary bedroom. Um, but every other room, I was very intentional with the designer. And I think that's the best thing that you need to look for when finding a designer, is someone that they can push you and you can also push them. And we had a really beautiful relationship around how far can we expand our vision of what is possible for a color drenched home.
Yeah. I was going to say you're lucky too. If you'd done this years ago, you probably wouldn't have so much video chatting and making it easier to at least keep in touch and see what it looks like from New York. I'm sure that
Totally.
that helped a lot. All right. Well, is there anything, I mean, anything else like that people who watch it that you want them to know, maybe they won't, get from the show that isn't going to be included? Is there anything you want them to know about the project at all?
I just want them to stay around for the entire journey because every episode has something quite special in it. And whether it be historical significance or whether it be design, I'm just excited for people to take the full journey with us because it really has a beautiful, beautiful payoff at the end.
It's a beautiful house. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Jamie.
Bye bye.